the budget. You know, yeah, he does. This is a really important thing because if we don't invest in these things, we're going to pay a big price. Romney has said that he generally agrees with what Congressman Ryan proposed, to have big cuts in all the things I just told you. Cut education funding, cut training funding, cut investments in new infrastructure, cut investments in research and development, cut investments in clean energy. Get rid of all that stuff. He even wants to repeal the student loan law, which will add to the deficit, raise the cost of student loans, and make them harder to repay, which will keep us dropping in the global rankings of college graduates. Obama's ideas are better.
Yes.
But I think this whole election is coming down to two things with people who are still undecided. They're worried about the debt and Obama's president, and they think somehow we should have fully recovered from that crash and Obama's president. Otherwise, Romney would be getting beat badly, I think. Don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. So let me talk a little about that. First of all, you can all go online and get a book. It's the best book ever written about financial crashes. It's called This Time It's Different by Kenneth Rogoff and Carmel Reinhart. Rogoff won the Nobel Prize in economics. He's a Harvard teacher, and I think he's a moderate Republican. And he tells you about all these financial crashes all over the world that have occurred since World War II, and talks about some that occurred a long time before that. And the basic argument is, it is never different. These things always happen when people forget what our mothers taught us, that when something sounds too good to be true, it almost always is. So you put too much money and take too much risk with too little capital to back it up. So I called Professor Rogoff. I said, he sent me his book. I read it. I read the chapters on America twice. I tried to get it all down. I called him and said, I just have one question. Could we have recovered fully from this financial crisis in 4 years? He said, you gotta be kidding. You know that's not true, don't you? I said, yeah, I do. He said, most countries, when they get hit as hard as we got hit on September the 8th, 2008, September the 15th, 6 weeks before the presidential election, he said, most countries take 10 years to get over it. I said, okay, can we beat that? He said, yeah, this is America. We can beat that. He said, we can beat that. We've got all these sources of new energy, this inexpensive natural gas, this great solar and wind potential. We've got massive potential to grow in information technology and biotechnology. We've got a great entrepreneurial system. You can start a small business easier here than you can in a lot of places. But we can't go back to your economy, meaning mine. He said, we got to go forward. We've got to educate and train people of all ages to find their way in a new world. And he said, we got to stay with that. So that's what President Obama wants to do. By the way, healthcare is a part of that. There was a huge article in USA Today a couple of weeks ago pointing out how rising insurance premiums in the last decade were a principal reason that middle-class workers didn't get a pay raise. Employers couldn't afford to raise their pay because they were spending their profits on the insurance premiums. Under Barack Obama, this new health care law has people working all over America to figure out ways to give health care in a way with higher quality and lower cost. And for the last 2 years, we have had inflation at 4% or less for the first time in, listen to this, 51 years. $1 billion+ in refunds have been paid to people because of the law's requirement that 80 to 85% of your premiums go to your health care. And next year, 30 million people will be able to afford insurance. That's all a part of this. Anytime somebody's sick and not part of the workforce, it undermines our productivity. Anytime a child drops out of school, it undermines our future. Anytime a young person can't finish college, it undermines our future. We are all in this together. So I just have to tell you, if you thought I knew what I was doing before, I spend an hour or more every day studying the economy. I talk to people all over America. I talk to people all over the world. I was home in Arkansas the other day, and I went out to a L'Oreal plant. You know what L'Oreal is, the French cosmetics company? We have in Arkansas the largest mascara plant in the world. Okay, so I'm out there. I'm going through the plant because we work with them on an energy project to improve their energy efficiency. This company has a goal of reducing their greenhouse gas emissions, their water use, and their waste by 50% by 2015. And they're doing it for economic reasons. Costco and Walmart are the two biggest users of solar power in America, and Mitt Romney's making fun of it. So here we are in Arkansas, and a plant built 37 years ago, but constantly modernized, where these workers are working. In 2012, 3 years ahead of time, they have reduced their greenhouse gas emissions through reducing electricity by 50%. They've reduced their water use by 50%, and they've already reduced their waste by 38%. They're ahead of schedule, and they're making more money. Obama's economic plan is better, and it will get us out of the ditch better. You have got to trust me on this. I have thought about this a lot. If I thought he needed to do something else, I would have told him years ago. Now I'm telling you, you need to go talk to people about this that are still debating how they're going to do it. Now let's talk a little bit about the debt. It takes three things to balance a budget. And since World War II, you've had exactly 5 surpluses. 1 under President Johnson and 4 under me. Hey! When the Republicans pontificate about this, say, look, the score is 5-0 here. You guys need to put something on the table. It takes, but it should be a bipartisan process, but it takes adequate control of spending, adequate revenues, and an adequate amount of economic growth. The principal reason for the increase in the debt under President Obama is the absence of economic growth in the crash. He stopped us from going into a depression, but we lost jobs for over a year. When that happens, nobody's making money, so tax receipts go down. And when that happens, people are in desperate need, so payments for unemployment and helping our neighbors feed their children go up, just like they're supposed to. And we run deficits. But I want you to know that if he hadn't done that stimulus, it would have been worse. And you don't have to take my word for it. The Europeans decided, oh, we'll cut the deficit, even though there's no economic activity. What happened? Revenues dropped more than they cut spending, and the deficits went up. The same thing the UK did, they slipped back into recession. Now they're sliding out and sliding in. You can't get blood out of a turnip. It's not fair. Obama has agreed already, unilaterally, to $1 trillion in spending cuts over the next 10 years as part of this $4 trillion plan. He just needs the Congress to work with him. We were thrilled to see the president and the Republican governor of New Jersey and the independent mayor and the Democratic governors of New York and Connecticut working together, right? Because we know there is no partisan way. We know there's no partisan way to clean up after a terrible storm, to help people put their lives back together. And I'm telling you, that kind of cooperation works better when there is no storm. It works better when you're trying to build a country, because nobody's right all the time. And I know that we'll come closer to getting rid of this debt if we re-elect President Obama, because he's got a budget. I mean, Mitt Romney says, really, he says, oh, this debt's terrible. Show us your budget. See me about that after the election. The way, and just think about it. He wants $5 trillion in tax cuts and $2.5 trillion in spending, only offset by $1 trillion, leaving $6.5 that he'll have to get rid of in addition to the debt we've got. How can people seriously say they're concerned about the debt and be thinking about voting for this? If you hired me to come in your backyard and fill in a deep hole, and I showed up 8 o'clock in the morning all smiling with my shovel, and I went in the backyard and you said, there it is, it's deep, you got to work all day, and I said, oh, I'll fill it, but before I fill it, I want to jump down there and dig it a little bit deeper. You would unhire me. That is the Romney position. See me about the details after the election. Now, Governor Romney says we're going to get 12 million jobs if he gets elected. But he forgot to tell you that just a few days before he said that, a respected business forecaster, Moody's Analytics, you can check it if you don't believe it, said we're going to get 12 million jobs in the next 4 years if we just don't mess up what we have already done under President Obama's leadership.
Yes.
So, we got Obama with a good economic plan, a good education plan, a good health care plan, and a budget, being opposed by Governor Romney, who wants to cut our investments in the future, cut education, repeal health care, and go back to the old system, which is the worst of all worlds. It's the most expensive system in the country, and it kept people from getting pay raises for a decade, and has no budget. We just know he wants to dig the hole deeper, and he wants us to trust him when he says he'll tell us later how he's going to fill the hole in, and then after that, later, he'll tell us what he's going to do. But he is going to cut the living daylights out of the investments in the education. I just don't think it's a good idea. And I don't think you think it's a good idea.
No.
And I could not let this election go by, since I once gave you my word that I would be with you till the last dog died. We don't want any dogs to die. I now have 3. And this is just doesn't make any sense, folks. The hour's late, but the election's close in New Hampshire. You can still find undecided voters. You can still find people who are for President Obama but hadn't decided whether to vote. I'm telling you, he's been a good commander-in-chief. He's made good decisions. He played a terrible hand quite well in the last 4 years. That's why I am more enthusiastic about it today than I was 3 years ago. And he is the only candidate with an actual plan, with real numbers, to do something about this debt problem. So, New Hampshire, your legendary common sense needs to kick in here. In overdrive. I will never be able to thank you enough for what you did for me.
Thank you.
But I want now you to do something for yourselves, for your children, for your grandchildren, for the future of this great state, and for the future of this country. I want you to give Jeanne Shaheen a partner back. I want you to put Maggie Hassan in the governor's office. And I want you to give Barack Obama 4 more years. Thank you.